The big alien ship floated quietly in space above Earth. It was bigger than any building humans had ever made. Inside the ship, Commander Zelek looked at the green and blue planet below. His skin was smooth and changed colors like water. Right now it was a calm blue color because he felt happy about what his team had found. "Look at these reports, Commander," said Keth, his science officer. Keth was younger than Zelek, but very smart. "The humans down there are so peaceful. We watched them for 6 months now. They barely fight at all." Zelek nodded as he read the data on his screen. The Galactic Federation had sent them to study Earth and its people. They wanted to know if humans were ready to join their big group of peaceful planets. Most species had to fight terrible wars before they learned to be nice to each other. But humans seemed different. "See this," Keth pointed to pictures of Earth cities. "No burn marks from big battles. No dead zones where nothing can grow. There. Armies are small, and they mostly help people instead of hurting them." The pictures showed human soldiers giving food to hungry children. They showed armies helping people after earthquakes and storms. They showed peaceful bases with small weapons that could not destroy whole cities. Zelek smiled with his alien mouth. His people, the Vorthani, had traveled to many worlds. They had seen species that turned their planets into burning rocks before they learned wisdom. They had met races that poisoned their own air and water during wars. But humans looked different. They looked like they had learned to be good without destroying everything first. On Earth, far below the alien ship, Jake Morrison sat in a big meeting room in Washington, D.C. He did not know aliens were watching his planet. Jake was a Marine, a soldier who had fought in many places around the world. He was 42 years old with gray hair starting to show at his temples. His face had lines from years of seeing hard things, but his eyes were kind. General Patricia Hamilton stood at the front of the room. She was Jake's boss and had called this special meeting. With her were other important people from the government and the space program. "Jake, we have a situation," the general said. "3 days ago, our satellites picked up something big in space. It's not one of ours, and it's not from any country on Earth." Jake sat up straighter in his chair. "Aliens, ma'am." "That's what we think. They sent us a message yesterday. They want to meet and talk. They say they come in peace and want to learn about us." Dr. Richard Hayes, a thin man with thick glasses, opened his laptop. "The message was in perfect English, Jake. They've been watching us and learning our language. They want to have a meeting on a platform in the middle of the ocean where no country owns the water." Ambassador Linda Foster, a woman in her 50s with smart eyes, leaned forward. "Jake, we picked you for this team because of your record. You've served in 12 different countries. You've helped with disaster relief, peacekeeping missions, and refugee camps. If these aliens are peaceful, we want them to see the best of what human soldiers can be." Jake thought about his 23 years as a Marine. He remembered helping earthquake victims in Japan, protecting refugees in Africa, and bringing medical supplies to remote villages. He had always tried to use his training to help people, not hurt them. "What do we know about them?" Jake asked. "Not much," Dr. Hayes admitted. "They call themselves the Vorthani. They seem to be part of something called the Galactic Federation. From what we can tell, they're explorers and scientists, not warriors." General Hamilton pulled up more pictures. On the big screen, our telescopes show their ship has no obvious weapons. It's clearly built for exploration and research. They've made no threatening moves and have stayed well away from our satellites and space stations. Jake nodded. "When do we meet them?" 1 week from today, Ambassador Foster said. "We'll have a team of 5 humans. You'll represent our military. I'll handle diplomacy. Dr. Hayes will cover science and history, and we'll have 2 translators. Even though they seem to speak English just fine." As the meeting ended, Jake walked outside into the warm summer air. He looked up at the sky and wondered what the aliens thought of humans. He hoped they were really peaceful. He had seen enough. War and fighting for one lifetime. Back on the alien ship, Commander Zalek was having his own meeting. His crew of 23 Vorthani scientists and diplomats sat around a curved table that glowed softly blue. The humans have agreed to meet, announced Diplomat Rin, the youngest member of their crew. They're sending 5 representatives, including one of their military leaders. Excellent, Zalek said, his skin brightening to a happy yellow-green. What do we know about this military leader? Science Officer Keth pulled up Jake's file on their screen. The aliens had been very good at hacking into Earth's computer systems. His name is Jake Morrison. He's what they call a Marine. According to our data, he has spent most of his career in what they call peacekeeping and humanitarian missions. The other aliens made pleased sounds. In their language, these were the highest honors a warrior could achieve. Look at his record, Keth continued. Earthquake relief in 4 different countries. Medical supply delivery to isolated populations. Refugee camp security where he protected. Civilians from local conflicts. Food distribution during famines. This is clearly a warrior who has evolved beyond primitive fighting. Zalek studied the pictures of Jake, helping human children and elderly people. Remarkable. Most species we encounter still use their military forces for conquest and territory disputes. But this Marine Morrison represents something much more advanced. The humans seem to have learned the lesson that most species take centuries to understand. Added Analyst Mira, an older Vorthani with deep blue skin. They use organized force for protection and aid, not for destruction and conquest. The aliens had no way of knowing that they were seeing only a small part of human nature. Their observations had started during a peaceful time. The major wars were over. The big conflicts had ended. They saw armies helping with disasters, because that's what armies were doing right then. They missed the long history of human warfare, because they arrived during a quiet moment. I'm excited to meet these humans, Rin said. They might be the most naturally peaceful species we've encountered. Usually, when we find a civilization, their warriors are still focused on fighting other warriors. But these humans seem to have moved beyond that completely. Zalek made the final preparations for first contact. He chose his most gentle and friendly crew members. He ordered their ship to stay far from Earth to avoid seeming threatening. He prepared gifts of beautiful crystals and art from their home. World, this will be a wonderful addition to the Federation, he told his crew. A species that learned peace without destroying their planet first. The Council will be very pleased. The Vorthani had no idea that they were about to meet a species that had not learned peace naturally, but had been forced to create it after learning exactly how terrible they could be when they tried. They thought they were meeting evolved beings who had grown beyond violence. Instead, they were about to encounter the most dangerous predators in the galaxy, who had simply learned to control themselves. As both species prepared for their first meeting, neither understood how different their definitions of peace really were. The aliens thought peace meant never learning to fight well. The humans knew peace meant learning to fight so well that you scared yourself into stopping. The meeting was set for the following Tuesday on a floating platform in the Pacific Ocean. Both sides looked forward to it with hope and excitement. Neither side knew that this first contact would change everything both species thought they knew about war, peace, and the nature of intelligent life in the galaxy. The floating platform bobbed gently on the blue Pacific Ocean waves. It was Tuesday morning, and the sun shone bright in the clear sky. Jake Morrison stood with his team, watching the alien ship come down from space. The ship was silver and made. No sound as it landed on the water near their platform. Jake wore his dress uniform with all his medals. Next to him stood Ambassador Linda Foster in a dark blue suit. Dr. Richard Hayes carried a briefcase full of information about Earth. 2 translators, Carol and Steve, waited nervously with their equipment, even though the aliens already spoke. English. The alien ship opened with a soft hiss. 5 tall beings stepped out onto the platform. They looked almost human, but were much taller and thinner. Their skin was smooth and changed colors like oil on water. Right now their skin was a peaceful blue-green color. The tallest alien stepped forward. His skin shimmered as he moved. Greetings, humans of Earth. I am Commander Zelek of the Vorthani. People, we come seeking knowledge and friendship. His voice was warm and musical. Jake was surprised how normal the alien sounded, like a friendly neighbor. Welcome to Earth, Commander Zelek, Ambassador Foster replied with a smile. I am Ambassador Linda Foster. This is Marine Jake Morrison, Dr. Richard Hayes, and our language specialists, Carol and Steve. The aliens looked very interested in Jake. A younger alien with bright green skin spoke up. Marine Morrison, we are honored to meet a peacekeeper from your world. Your reputation for helping others has reached even our distant home. Jake felt confused, but said nothing. He wondered what reputation they meant. For the next 3 days, the 2 groups shared information about their worlds. The aliens were amazed by human art. Dr. Hayes showed them paintings by famous artists and played music from different countries. The aliens loved jazz music and classical symphonies. Their skin changed to bright, happy colors when they heard the music. Your species creates such beauty, said Analyst Keth, a middle-aged alien with wise eyes. We have studied many worlds, but human creativity is special. You have so many different cultures and languages, yet you all make beautiful things. Dr. Hayes smiled proudly. Music and art help bring humans together. Even when we disagree about other things, we can share beauty. The aliens showed holographic pictures of their home world. It was covered in tall crystal cities that sparkled in the light of their 3 suns. Their people lived in harmony with nature. Everything looked peaceful and perfect. How long have your people lived in peace? Ambassador Foster asked. Over 2,000 of your years, Commander Zelek replied. We had conflicts long ago, but we learned to solve problems with words instead of weapons. Jake listened carefully as the aliens described their old wars. They sounded nothing like human wars. The Vorthani would meet in open fields. They would fight with energy weapons that stunned enemies instead of killing them. When one side lost too many fighters, they would surrender, and the winners would help them rebuild. Nobody tried to destroy cities or hurt people who were not fighting. Your conflicts sound very civilized, Dr. Hayes observed. All intelligent species eventually learn proper ways to resolve disputes, Kath explained. Violence is wasteful and primitive. We assume your people learned this lesson even faster than most species. Jake shifted uncomfortably in his chair. The aliens were making assumptions about humans that were not quite right. On the 2nd day, the aliens became very excited about human military activities. They had been watching Earth's armies through their telescopes and computer networks. Marine Morrison, Commander Zelek said over lunch, we have observed your military forces with great interest. Such noble work your warriors do. What do you mean? Jake asked carefully. Young Rin, the alien scientist, pulled out a small device that showed pictures in the air. Look at these wonderful examples. Your Marines delivering food to hungry children in remote villages. Your Army building schools in poor countries. Your Navy rescuing people from sinking boats. More pictures appeared. Human soldiers giving medical care to sick people. Military engineers building bridges and roads. Troops helping during earthquakes and floods. In all our observations, Kath added, we found only positive uses of your military forces. Peacekeeping, disaster relief, humanitarian aid. Your species has clearly evolved beyond primitive warfare. Jake's stomach began to feel heavy. The aliens had been watching during peaceful times. They had not seen the full picture of what human militaries could do. "We are most impressed by your example, Marine Morrison," Commander Zelek continued. "A warrior who became a bringer of peace and aid. This represents the highest evolution of the military spirit." Ambassador Foster gave Jake a worried look. She could see he was troubled by the alien's praise. "Commander," she said carefully, "I think there might be some things about human history that you have not seen. Our military forces do many good things, but they were not always used for peaceful purposes." Zelek's skin flickered to a curious yellow color. "Of course, Ambassador. All species have periods of growth and learning. But clearly, your people have moved beyond those early stages. Your current military activities show a fully evolved approach to organized force." Dr. Hayes opened his laptop computer. "Perhaps we should share some of our historical records with you. Human development has been quite complex." "That would be wonderful," Rin said eagerly. "We love learning about how different species achieved enlightenment." Dr. Hayes hesitated. He had been planning to show them human achievements in science, art, and exploration. But now he realized the aliens expected to see a story of natural progression toward peace. The real story of human history was much darker and more complicated. Over the next few hours, Dr. Hayes carefully showed selected parts of human history. He focused on times when humans helped each other and worked together. He showed them the founding of the United Nations, international cooperation in space exploration, and global efforts to fight diseases. The aliens were delighted. "See how naturally your species learned cooperation," Keth observed. "Most civilizations require several devastating wars before they understand the benefits of working together. But humans seem to have discovered this wisdom through peaceful development." Jake finally spoke up. "Commander, with respect, I think you may be missing some important parts of our story." "What do you mean, Marine Morrison?" Jake looked at Ambassador Foster, who nodded slightly. "Our military forces do a lot of good work now, but that has not always been their primary purpose. Human armies were originally created for fighting other humans." "Yes, of course," Zelek agreed. "All militaries begin as defensive forces. But you have evolved them into tools for helping and protecting. This shows great wisdom." "It's more complicated than that," Jake said quietly. The aliens looked confused. Their skin colors shifted to uncertain purples and grays. "Perhaps, Ambassador," Foster suggested, "we should take some time to prepare better historical materials. There are aspects of human development that require careful explanation." "Excellent idea," Commander Zelek replied. "We have much time to learn about each other. This cultural exchange is the beginning of a long friendship between our peoples." That evening, after the aliens returned to their ship, the human team gathered in their quarters on the platform. "They have no idea what we are really capable of," Jake said, staring out at the ocean. "How do we tell them?" Dr. Hayes asked. "They think we are naturally peaceful. They think our military evolution was smooth and civilized. How do we explain the truth without terrifying them?" Ambassador Foster sat down heavily. "We have to tell them eventually. When they do full research on our history, they will discover everything. Better they hear it from us in a controlled way than find out on their own." Jake nodded grimly. "They are going to ask direct questions soon. And when they do, I will have to give honest answers. That's what Marines do." None of them knew that. Tomorrow, young Rin would ask the question that would change everything both species thought they knew about war, peace, and the nature of intelligent life in the galaxy. The morning of the 5th day started quietly on the floating platform. Jake Morrison ate his breakfast while watching the sunrise paint the ocean gold and orange. The alien ship sat peacefully on the water nearby. Everything seemed calm, but Jake felt nervous. He knew the aliens would ask harder questions soon. Ambassador Linda Foster joined him at the table. "How are you feeling about today, Jake?" "Worried," Jake admitted. "They keep praising us for being naturally peaceful. Sooner or later, they are going to dig deeper into our history and find things that will shock them." Dr. Richard Hayes sat down with his coffee and laptop. "I have been thinking about this all night. Maybe we can ease them into the truth slowly. Show them how we learned from our mistakes." Before anyone could answer, the aliens arrived for the day's meetings. Commander Zelek walked onto the platform with his usual friendly smile. His skin was bright blue, showing he felt happy and excited. With him came analyst Keth, young scientist Rin, and 2 other Vorthani researchers. "Good morning, human friends." Zelek called out cheerfully. "We are eager to continue learning about your wonderful civilization." The morning session went well at first. Dr. Hayes showed them more human art and music. The aliens were especially fascinated by human poetry and stories. They loved tales of heroes helping others and communities working together. "Your literature shows such noble values," Keth observed. "Stories of cooperation, sacrifice for others, protection of the weak. These themes appear in all your cultures across all time periods." Jake noticed that Dr. Hayes was carefully selecting which stories to share. He was avoiding myths about war gods, epic battles, and tales of conquest that filled human literature. Lunch, young Rin pulled out his translation device. The young alien had been studying human languages and military terms all week. His green skin flickered with curiosity as he worked with his computer. "I have been analyzing your military documentation," Rin announced. "Your human languages are fascinating, but I found some terms that do not translate properly into our language." Jake felt his stomach tighten. He had been dreading this moment. "What kind of terms?" Ambassador Foster asked, trying to sound casual. Rin looked directly at Jake. "Marine Morrison, there are several phrases in your military records that confuse our computers. But one stands out as particularly puzzling. You humans use the words war crimes frequently in your documents. Our linguistic systems cannot properly categorize this concept." The room went completely silent. Jake could hear his own heartbeat. Ambassador Foster stopped breathing for a moment. Dr. Hayes stared at his hands. "Could you explain what crimes occur during war?" Rin continued innocently. "Our computers cannot understand how crimes and war relate to each other." Commander Zelek leaned forward with interest. "Yes, this is curious to us as well. In our understanding, war is a formal process with clear rules that both sides follow. What crimes could occur during such an organized activity?" Jake looked at Ambassador Foster. She gave him a small nod. They had known this moment would come. Jake was a Marine, and Marines told the truth even when it was hard. Jake stood up slowly and walked to the window overlooking the ocean. He took a deep breath and turned back to face the aliens. "War crimes," Jake began carefully, "are violations of the laws of armed conflict. They are acts that are considered unacceptable even during warfare." The aliens looked at each other with confusion. Their skin colors shifted to puzzled purples and grays. Zelek spoke first. "I do not understand, Marine Morrison. If you are in a state of war, what acts could be considered unacceptable? Is not the purpose of war to defeat your enemy by whatever means are most effective?" Jake felt the weight of human history pressing down on him. "No, Commander. That is exactly why we needed to create laws about war. Humans developed extensive rules about how wars should be fought. We have international treaties, courts, and judges who punish those who break these laws." "But why would you limit yourselves during combat?" asked Keth, genuinely confused. "Would this not make you weaker and help your enemies win?" Jake returned to his seat. His voice was quiet but steady. Because we learned what happens when there are no limits in war. We learned what humans are capable of when we do not control ourselves. The aliens exchanged worried glances. In their experience, warfare was naturally limited by biology and technology. The idea that a species would be so dangerous to itself that it needed laws to control its own behavior was completely foreign to them. Perhaps you could give us examples? Ren asked. His scientific curiosity was stronger than his growing concern. Jake closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, his expression was grave. One of our most basic war crimes is targeting civilians. We made it illegal to deliberately attack people who are not fighting in the war. But surely such tactics would serve no military purpose, Zelek protested. Why would anyone attack non-combatants? Because it works very well, Jake replied. Quietly, attacking civilians breaks the enemy's will to fight. It forces them to surrender to protect their families. That is exactly why we had to ban it. The alien skin colors were shifting rapidly now, showing their distress and confusion. Ambassador Foster decided to help Jake carry the burden. Commander Zelek, I think you need to understand something important about humans. We did not naturally evolve to be peaceful. We had to learn it the hard way. Dr. Hayes opened his laptop with shaking hands. Let me show you some numbers, Commander. In our Second World War alone, between 70 and 85 million people died. That is roughly the same as the entire population of your home planet. The silence that followed was deafening. The aliens' translation devices worked frantically, as if the numbers were too large to process correctly. One war? Whispered Rin. But that is impossible. No species could lose so many and still survive. We have fought many major wars throughout our history, Jake continued. Each one taught us new ways to hurt each other, and each one forced us to create new laws to prevent even worse damage. Keth's skin had turned a deep purple that the humans were learning meant fear. You are saying that your species fought wars so terrible that you had to create laws to limit your own behavior? Yes, Jake confirmed. We developed weapons that could kill thousands of people in minutes. We created poisons that would make enemy soldiers die slowly and painfully. We built bombs that could destroy entire cities in seconds. And you used all of these weapons? Zelek asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Multiple times, Jake said. That is why we banned them. Every law of war exists because humans had done something so terrible that we decided it must never happen again. Ambassador Foster leaned forward. Commander, when your people observed our peaceful military activities, you were seeing the result of centuries of learning to control our own destructive capabilities. Every humanitarian mission, every peacekeeping operation, every disaster. Relief effort represents humans choosing to use our skills for building instead of destroying. The Vorthani delegation sat in stunned silence. They had come expecting to meet a kindred peaceful species. Instead, they had discovered that humans were not naturally peaceful at all. They were predators who had learned to control their predatory instincts. The Geneva Conventions, Jake explained, prohibit torture of prisoners, execution of captured enemies, attacks on medical workers, use of children as soldiers, and deliberate starvation of civilian populations. We needed these laws because humans had done all of these things in previous wars. Commander Zelek stood up suddenly. His skin was now bright red, which the humans had learned indicated extreme alarm. You are telling us that your species created an entire system of laws to prevent yourselves from committing acts so horrible that they required prohibition. And these laws were necessary because you had already committed such acts repeatedly. In multiple wars on multiple continents throughout our entire recorded history, Jake confirmed. The implications began to sink in for the aliens. They had approached what they believed was a naturally peaceful species, only to discover they had made first contact with the most dangerous predators in known space. Predators who had learned to police themselves. The floating platform felt smaller now. The aliens sat frozen in their chairs, their skin colors shifting between red fear and purple shock. Commander Zelak's hands trembled as he tried to process what Jake Morrison had just told them. Jake sat back down, his face serious but calm. He had spent 23 years as a Marine learning to deal with hard truths. Now he had to help these peaceful aliens understand something that would change how they saw the entire universe. "I can see you are frightened," Jake said gently. "I understand why, but there is more you need to know." Ambassador Linda Foster watched the aliens carefully. She could see they were close to panic. Young Rin's green skin had turned almost black with shock. Analyst Keth was making small whimpering sounds that their translator could not convert into words. "Please," Commander Zelak managed to say, "tell us more. We must understand what we are dealing with." Dr. Richard Hayes opened his laptop again. "Let me show you some specific examples. This might help you understand how we learn to control ourselves." Images appeared on his screen. Pictures of ancient battlefields covered with thousands of dead soldiers. Ruins of cities that had been completely destroyed. Maps showing how borders changed after wars. "This is from our American Civil War," Dr. Hayes explained. "It lasted 4 years and killed over 600,000 people. And this was just one country fighting itself." The aliens stared at the pictures in horror. In their worst conflicts, maybe a few hundred warriors would be stunned unconscious. The idea of hundreds of thousands of deaths was beyond their understanding. Jake continued the explanation. "We learned to use fire as a weapon. We would burn entire cities to force enemies to surrender. We discovered that fear could be more powerful than any sword or gun." "But the suffering," whispered Rin. "How could your people continue fighting, knowing so many would die?" "Because we believed our causes were worth any price," Jake replied. Honestly, each side thought they were right, and the other side was evil. When you believe that completely, you can justify almost anything. Keth finally found his voice. "What about your leaders? Did they not see the destruction and try to stop it?" Ambassador Foster answered this one. "Often our leaders were the ones demanding more destruction. They believed that showing strength would prevent future wars. They were usually wrong." Jake stood up and walked to his briefcase. He pulled out a thick book and set it on the table. "This is called the Geneva Convention. It is 600 pages of rules about how wars should be fought. Every rule exists because humans broke it so badly that we decided it must never happen again." He opened the book to a page covered with small text. "Here is the rule about medical workers. We made it illegal to attack doctors, nurses, and ambulance drivers during wars. We needed this rule because soldiers kept shooting medical workers to prevent them from saving enemy wounded." The aliens looked sick. Their skin had turned a pale gray color. "Here is the rule about prisoners," Jake continued, turning pages. "We made it illegal to torture, execute, or abuse captured enemies. We needed this rule because armies kept doing terrible things to prisoners to get information or just for revenge." Dr. Hayes pulled up more pictures on his computer. "These are from our Second World War. This was our most destructive conflict. We invented weapons that could kill entire cities in minutes. We used poison gas that would melt human lungs. We deliberately starved millions of people to death." Commander Zelak stood up abruptly and walked to the edge of the platform. He stared out at the peaceful ocean, trying to understand how the same species that could create such beauty could also create such horror. "How did you survive?" he asked, without turning around. "How is your species still alive after such destruction?" "Because we learned," Jake said firmly. "Every terrible war taught us something new about what we should never do again. We wrote down these lessons in laws and treaties. We built courts to punish those who broke the rules. We trained our soldiers to follow these laws even when it made fighting harder. Ambassador Foster joined Zelek at the edge of the platform. Commander, I know this is frightening, but you need to understand the most important part of our story. Which is, we chose to stop. Humans could have kept getting better at destroying each other. We could have built bigger weapons and found worse ways to hurt our enemies. Instead, we decided to get better at controlling ourselves. Jake opened the book to another section. After our Second World War, we created something called the United Nations. Countries that had been enemies sat down together and agreed on rules for the whole world. We decided that some weapons were too terrible to ever use again. But you still have armies, Keth pointed out. We observed your military forces. They are still very large and well equipped. Yes, Jake agreed. But look at what those armies do now. When was the last time you saw human militaries fighting each other? The aliens thought about their months of observation. They had seen armies helping with disasters, delivering aid, and keeping peace between smaller conflicts. But they had not seen any major wars between the big military powers. We still have armies because peace requires strength, Jake explained. But we use that strength to prevent wars instead of winning them. When smaller countries start fighting, we send peacekeepers to stop them before it gets worse. Dr. Hayes showed them pictures of recent peacekeeping missions. Soldiers standing between enemy groups to prevent fighting. Military engineers building schools and hospitals. Navy ships delivering food to hungry populations. This is what we learned, Ambassador Foster said. The best way to win a war is to prevent it from starting. The best use of a strong military is to make war unnecessary. Young Rin finally spoke up. But how do we know you will not change your minds? How do we know you will not decide to use your terrible capabilities again? Jake closed the Book of War Laws and looked directly at the young alien. Because we remember what happens when we do not control ourselves. Every human soldier learns about war crimes in basic training. Every officer swears an oath to follow the laws of war. We police ourselves because we know the alternative. And if someone breaks these laws, Commander Zelek asked, we put them on trial and punish them, Ambassador Foster replied. Even our own soldiers, even our own leaders. The laws apply to everyone. Dr. Hayes pulled up one more set of pictures. These showed war crimes trials where human leaders were being judged by courts for breaking the laws of war. We punish our own people when they commit war crimes, he explained. This shows that we take these laws seriously. They are not just words on paper. Commander Zelek turned back to face the humans. His skin was still red with fear, but there was something else now, a cautious respect. So when you say you are peacekeepers, he said slowly, you do not mean you are naturally peaceful. No, Jake replied. We mean we have learned to keep the peace through strength and discipline. We are dangerous enough to win any war, but wise enough to prevent wars from starting. Keth's skin flickered with a new color, somewhere between fear and fascination. You are predators who have learned to hunt war itself. That is a good way to put it, Jake agreed. We turned our skills for destruction into skills for protection. We use our knowledge of violence to prevent violence. The aliens sat quietly, for several minutes, trying to process everything they had learned. They had come to Earth expecting to meet kindred spirits who had naturally evolved beyond warfare. Instead, they had discovered the most dangerous species in known space, who had learned to be dangerous to danger itself. As the sun began to set over the Pacific Ocean, both species understood that this first contact had changed everything they thought they knew about peace, war, and the nature of intelligent life in the galaxy. The sun rose over the Pacific Ocean on the 6th day of first contact. Jake Morrison woke up early and walked onto the platform deck. He found Commander Zelek already standing there, watching the sunrise paint the sky in soft colors. The aliens' skin was a quiet blue-gray that Jake had learned meant deep thought. "I did not sleep last night," Zelek said without looking away from the sunrise. "My people are afraid. We came here believing we had found friends who thought like us. Instead, we discovered we had approached the most dangerous beings in the known galaxy." Jake joined him at the railing. The ocean was calm and peaceful. It was hard to believe that somewhere far below, human submarines carried weapons that could destroy entire continents. "I understand your fear, Commander," Jake said quietly. "But there is something else you need to understand about my people." "What is that?" Jake pointed to a rescue helicopter that was flying its morning patrol around the platform. "See that pilot up there? He has training that would let him turn his aircraft into a weapon. He could destroy this entire platform and everyone on it in minutes." Zalag's skin darkened with worry. "And yet, he does not." "That is exactly the point," Jake said. "He has chosen not to. Every human in uniform makes that choice every single day. We are trained to be dangerous, but we choose to be protectors instead. Behind them, the rest of the human and alien teams were gathering for what everyone knew would be their final day of meetings. The mood was tense. The aliens had learned too much about human nature to feel comfortable, but they had not yet decided what to do with this knowledge. Ambassador Linda Foster approached the two leaders. "Good morning. How are you both feeling today?" "Confused," Zelek admitted honestly. "My scientists spent all night analyzing what we learned yesterday. They cannot understand how your species survived its own destructive capabilities." Dr. Richard Hayes joined the group, carrying his laptop and looking tired. "I have been thinking about that too, Commander. Would you like me to show you how we learned to survive ourselves?" They moved to the meeting area where the other aliens were already waiting. Young Rin looked exhausted. His green skin was pale, and his eyes were wide with lingering shock. Analyst Keth sat quietly, occasionally making notes on his device. "The key to understanding humans," Dr. Hayes began, "is to realize that we did not start as warriors. We started as survivors." He opened his laptop and showed pictures of early humans living in caves in small groups. "For most of our history, we were prey animals. Bigger, stronger creatures hunted us. We learned to be clever and worked together to stay alive. But something changed," Jake continued. "We got better at working together. We invented tools and weapons. Eventually, we became so good at surviving that we had no natural enemies left." "Except yourselves," Zelek observed. "Exactly," Ambassador Foster agreed. "When humans had no external threats, we started fighting each other for resources, territory, and ideas. We turned our survival skills into weapons of war." Dr. Hayes showed more pictures. Ancient armies with spears and shields, medieval knights on horseback, soldiers with guns and cannons. For thousands of years, we kept getting better at fighting. Each generation invented more effective ways to kill enemies. But we also kept getting better at something else, Jake added. We got better at learning from our mistakes. Rin finally spoke up. "What do you mean?" Jake stood and walked to the center of the group. "Every terrible war taught us something new about what happens when violence goes too far. After our first big war with guns and cannons, we created rules about treating wounded enemies. After our first war with chemical weapons, we banned poison gas. After our first war with nuclear weapons, we created treaties to control them." "You learned to fear yourselves," Keth said slowly. "Yes," Jake agreed, "and that fear made us wise. We realized that our greatest enemy was not any external threat. Our greatest enemy was our own capacity for destruction." Ambassador Foster pulled out a different book. This one was smaller and newer than the War Crimes Manual. This is our current military handbook. Every soldier studies this before they are allowed to carry weapons. She opened it to a page with large, bold letters. The first rule says, the purpose of military force is to preserve peace, not to win wars, not to defeat enemies, to preserve peace. How is that different? Commander, Zelek asked. Because it changes how we think about everything, Jake explained. When your goal is to win wars, you focus on destroying your enemy. When your goal is to preserve peace, you focus on preventing wars from starting. Dr. Hayes showed them pictures of modern military activities. Soldiers building schools in Afghanistan. Navy ships delivering medical supplies to disaster areas. Air Force planes dropping food to refugees. This is what human military force looks like today, he said. We use our skills for war to prevent wars. We use our weapons to protect people instead of hurting them. Zelek studied the pictures carefully. But you still have the capability to destroy. These same soldiers could turn their skills to conquest if they chose to. Yes, Jake admitted. Every human soldier is trained to be a killer, but we are also trained to be protectors. We learn both skills because we know that sometimes the only way to protect innocent people is to be more dangerous than those who would hurt them. This is what makes you different from other species we have met, Keth realized. Most civilizations learn peace by becoming weak. You learned peace by becoming so strong that you scared yourselves into wisdom. Ambassador Foster nodded. We did not evolve beyond violence. We evolved beyond the need for violence. There is a big difference. Rin looked up from his notes. Could you give us an example? Jake thought for a moment. There is an old saying. Among humans, walk softly and carry a big stick. It means to be polite and peaceful in your dealings with others, but to be strong enough that no one wants to test your limits. So you prevent wars by being too dangerous to fight. Zelek asked. Partly, Jake agreed. But more importantly, we prevent wars by showing that we prefer building to destroying. We prove our strength by helping instead of hurting. We demonstrate our capabilities through protection instead of conquest. Dr. Hayes showed them one final set of pictures. These showed human military forces from around the world working together. American soldiers serving alongside troops from former enemy countries. International peacekeeping forces with soldiers from dozens of nations. The most remarkable thing about modern human warfare, he explained, is that former enemies now fight side by side. Countries that once tried to destroy each other now send their soldiers to serve together in peacekeeping missions. How is this possible? Rin asked in amazement. Because we learned that our real enemy was war itself, Ambassador Foster replied. We stopped fighting each other and started fighting against the conditions that cause wars. Poverty, disease, natural disasters, ethnic hatred. We use our military skills to attack these problems instead of attacking each other. Commander Zelek walked back to the edge of the platform. He stared out at the ocean for a long time while his skin slowly changed colors. Finally, it settled on a deep blue that indicated respect mixed with caution. I believe I understand now, he said. You are not a peaceful species. You are a species of warriors who have learned to make war on war itself. That is a very good way to put it, Jake agreed. Zelek turned back to face the humans. My people will still fear yours, Marine Morrison. But perhaps now it will be the right kind of fear. The fear that recognizes strength, which chooses mercy over conquest. Jake extended his hand for a handshake. Commander, we hope to be worthy of both your fear and your respect. As the two leaders shook hands, both species understood that this first contact had changed everything. The aliens had not found the naturally peaceful civilization they expected. Instead, they had discovered something far more remarkable. A species of apex predators who had learned to hunt only those who threatened peace. When Commander Zelek returned to his ship, he sent a message to the Galactic Federation Council. It was short, but would be remembered for generations. Classification change required for species designation human. Previous assessment, benign species. New assessment, apex predator. Approach with extreme caution and respect. Note, they have made themselves more dangerous by learning when not to be dangerous at all.